What's up, everybody? Hey, Tom Laird here, host of the Advice from a Call Center Geek podcast and founder of Expedia. For exceptional contact center outsourcing, trust Expedia. We're fully AI-driven, as all of you know, and can handle voice, email, chat, and all of your digital channels. Our 600-seat USA contact center is expert in healthcare, financial services, insurance, tech support, retail, and more. Experts on the NICE CX1 platform, we ensure seamless customer experiences. DM me or visit expediausa.com for more. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Advice from a Call Center Geek, the Call Center Contact Center podcast. We try to give you some actionable items to take back in your contact center, improve the overall quality, improve your agent experience, hopefully improve your customer experience as well. Hope everybody's doing well as we're kind of heading into the Halloween time, fall. It's amazing here in northwestern Pennsylvania. The colors are just starting. We're about 2 weeks away from kind of, I guess, full bloom, but really, really cool. Love this time of year. Football's rolling. My Steelers stink, but we got Kenny Pickett starting this week at Buffalo, but we'll see. All right, I think I have something a little bit interesting for you, and I love there's a I'm not going to say his name, but I got a question. And I got my phone up here to kind of read the question that I got on a DM from LinkedIn that I think is a great idea for an episode. And also, it's going to spawn, I think, some other episodes from it because I think this is going to add a lot of value. And I'm kind of mad that I never thought about it ahead of time. But basically, this person DM me and says, hey, we talk a lot about how much technology can help us in the contact center space. But I find that many of us tend to think that tech is some type of magic button, right? Just deploy it and it works. And a lot of people are disappointed that it's not that easy. You mentioned, meaning me, a good bit of trial and error and testing. It may be good to understand things like how do I determine how to test, build, deploy? How do I prioritize? How should I build a team out, right? Roles, SMEs, SMEs, subject matter experts. How does this all work? How do we kind of put it together? What are some of the things that are more complicated than others, in my opinion? And I think that this is an amazing question. And I'm going to give a 30,000-foot view in this episode, and then maybe for the next couple of weeks, and we'll talk about each specific kind of technology, right? Focusing on, I got my notes here that I'm looking down, WFM, QA, analytics, setting up actual production, right? So a new agent comes in, or you're setting up a new telephony platform. How do you do skills? Who does skills? Who does routing? Gamification. And I think that's kind of the main 6 or 7 different kind of tools that I'm talking about. So let's start here with our basic production, right? So our omni-channel, right? Our PBX, right? However you want to kind of say it, right? Our telephony, core production platform. And IT does get involved with this. Now, like I've said, because I am in the cloud, the amazing, awesome thing is I really only have 2.5, 3 IT people, right? And when it comes to if we have a new project or a new program, right, our IT will get involved. They will do all the skilling, right? Because there is some things that we need to program, maybe in Contact or in CX1, they call it Studio. Right. If we want to do anything advanced, they will handle the IVR situation. And really, there's one person that I have that handles my telephony stuff. Right. He's an expert at it. He's awesome at it, knows the platform inside and out. He will handle all of that from our client services. The production supervisor, right, who's going to be running the program. Oh, my gosh, glasses are crooked here. Who's going to be running the program actually sets up the agents and the skills and does that with HR, right? So if HR is we're bringing on a bunch of new hires, then HR will kind of set up those skills, make sure the agents are set up in the platform. If we're bringing people kind of on from other programs that are already here at Expedia, that supervisor will do it and kind of talk to HR. So there's kind of a ham and egg when it comes to that, but it's not a lot of people, right? Amazing thing about being in the cloud, you don't need a ton of IT support to do this. It's very basic. I could probably do it if I actually started to really look at it, but those guys from a programming standpoint, I am not a programmer. Don't really need a full programmer, but you need to understand the concepts. So that's, I think, pretty easy, but it's a mixture between our IT, our HR, and our production staff, right? When it comes to ancillary tools that you're adding to your site, there's a little bit of nuance to it, right? So WFM, workforce management. Oh, let me just say this too. Everything that I'm going to talk about here, this is for smaller type contact centers. So smaller meaning under 1,000 seats, maybe a couple hundred seats. If you're 2,500, 3,000, 10,000 seats, this probably, you're not going to be able to relate that well to this because things are at scale for you, where for each of these things, you need a team, right? Where if you have 500 or 600 seats like me, I don't need a team, right? And that's kind of the nuance with this and the cool piece of people think you do, but you don't. But some things need to be dedicated, some things don't. So having said that, workforce management, I think we have a dedicated resource for that, right? We have a backup for that as well, right? Because there's a ton to learn. Now, WFM, I think for us was one of the most intense learning pieces of software that we've undertaken. And the reason for that is not just the scheduling piece, which is kind of straightforward, but for us, the one of the biggest use cases for us is the forecasting aspect, right? So you're really understanding what we should be staffed, understanding we can give our clients, all that forecasting data of what they should be looking to budget. That was a huge piece to really get that right and to really understand it. And then there's training of your associates with this, right? So anything that you can't keep like with your supervisors or your management team, right? But you got to kind of expand out to agents. I think it makes it a little bit more difficult just because of the scale of it, right? So they have to learn, certain things that are happening with their WFM, trading schedules, doing those types of things, working on a different platform than they were used to, right? Because it'll be new in the nuances. Understanding, having your supervisors understand and be able to look and see who's out of adherence and having that one kind of resource kind of help with them as well. So we keep a lot of times it's WFM, right? And then underneath it is kind of QA and they're under that or opposite, like QA for me, quality assurance, WFM lies under that, right? So I probably should have started with QA, right? But our WFM sits kind of in with our QA folk, right? And speaking of QA, all right, even for a smaller center, you need a team for this. This is not going to be a one-person QA show unless maybe you have 20 people, 30 people. I've talked to you guys about ratios before, and we're about at a 30 to 35 to 1 ratio when it comes to QA to agents, right? Supervisors are also monitoring, and they're about a 15, 12, 15, depending to 1. You need a team for this. I don't think that setup for this is very difficult, right? On most platforms, the main things that you're going to have to focus on is building out your scorecards, finding out how the scorecard, the way you had it, could maybe correlate to how the QA platform is. Now, we have, again, QM and QMA is quality management with analytics. So we do have an analytic piece to this as well that everyone in our QA has learned. So it did become a little bit more robust, well worth it in the end. But no, there's a QA manager in there, but the job is pretty much equal for everybody. But again, if you have a 100-seat call center, you're going to need, anywhere from 2 to 4 QA people, I think, to do it right, listening and scoring calls, doing that. Okay. Analytics is also in our QA. All right. You could have, I should say, one person that is in charge. We do not. We have one of our QA people that we pay a little bit more that is in charge of analytics as well. Right. So they can do the reporting. They can do reports. They can make sure if there's any questions from the supervisors, because our supervisors have access to all of the reporting. They can pull those reports themselves. Right. But when it comes to setting up a new client, there is a lot of setup to this. Right. Analytics, people think you just slap it on and it's awesome. Right. But think about it. There's so many things that you need to nuance. Right. So if you're answering the phone in the same way every time, those keywords show up every single time. So you got to get rid of those. Right. Maybe thank yous at the end of a call. Right. But not in the middle. There are a lot of different things that happen in a setup with this. And imagine it was an intense setup for us as well. As we're trying to onboard every single client. But I think once you understood kind of one, then the client services people that we have who really understand the insides and outs of the program. We're able to really help with that. But I would say after WFM, analytics is also the second most difficult to implement. It's something that you need to stay on top of. And I think that, there's a lot of, again, some nuance with that. And Jeff here has a question. How does modularization or vertical in the WFM QA, do you see more of all-in-one solutions or more a la carte? Okay. So basically, Jeff, I have a question here. Let me throw it up on the screen. Right. And he's basically asking, should it be part of the platform, or is it kind of slap on from third party? And I think that's a really good question. And I would tell you that for most platforms, they do not have everything internal to themselves, right? So WFM, maybe they have, but they don't have analytics. QA, maybe they have, but they don't have WFM. And so what you'll see is they partner with a ton of different groups, right? So from Monet to Calabrio to Verint to all these other partners, right, on kind of that WFM side to the Level AI or the Observe AI on the analytics side, have really easy integrations. Not saying it's bad, right? But it is kind of more a la carte. It can be a little bit more expensive. And then again, I'm not here. You guys know I'm on the CX1 platform. But the reason I do really like the platform is that everything is native, right? So there's no integrations. There's no slapping anything on. I would say that that's one of their huge selling points. Even with Genesis, you're kind of slapping some things on. Is that everything is native? I prefer, and I love that. Right? I think it's quicker. One bill makes more sense, even though I know they can put it on their paper. I get all that. You don't have to DM me on that, but it's not a huge deal, Jeff, because there's so many really good products and the integrations are so robust now. But it is cool, right, to have things that are native to the platform. The integration is just so much smoother, so much easier. And, you have one person to talk to instead of, 2 to 3 people to talk to, even though they say you won't have to. A lot of times it's not my problem, it's their problem. And then it's not their problem, it's your problem, right, kind of thing. So again, it's kind of what you like, but I think that I really like the being native to the platform. All right. The other kind of, I think, piece here too that became much bigger, but I'm glad we did it is gamification, right? And we started this in our QA, but moved it to HR. So we have an HR lead now, one person that does HR stuff, plus does kind of the gamification administrator, right, for all of our associates. And, that we thought was going to be a huge undertaking, but I think once things are fun, they go much smoother and people buy in more. And I think we saw that with gamification. So, the supervisors took a lead on it, even though we didn't really ask them to do it. The reps, would be finding things out and kind of figuring things out as we went. So, I think we kind of saw it with analytics too, like the cooler the product and maybe the less intrusive, like WFM is intrusive, right? Because it's like, hey, your adherence, you need to be here. You need to be doing that. No one's really helping with that. But, some of the fun stuff like gamification, again, setup was a little intense. We do have one administrator. So if I look at this, WFM, we have an administrator. QA, we do not have an administrator. We just have a lead. Analytics, we just have a lead. That's part of our QA. Production is kind of setting things up. It's kind of a HR and IT task. Our gamification, we have an HR lead who's in charge of that. So I don't think you need to build out huge teams for call centers that are even my size, 500-600 seats. If you're under 100 seats, you definitely do not. You probably don't even need a lead for any of this. All of this can be managed on that smaller scale. But when you do get to a point where, one of these pieces is kind of dominating time, that's when you really need to look to do it. But again, great thing about being in the cloud, everything is pretty darn easy to use, no matter who you're using. Talkdesk, Genesis, CX1, really easy. But I think to do things right, you need to make sure that there are separate areas, even though there could be some crossover. So again, I like to take, maybe a couple, weeks and really talk about WFM, talk about what it took for us to scale it, to set it up, some of the issues that we saw with that, especially analytics. I think analytics is a really interesting one as well. QA, we've talked a lot about from building scorecards and those kind of things, but the gamification aspect. And I'm trying to keep this neutral. I'm not trying to keep this to a specific platform. So I think, again, I don't want to, unless you guys want to pay me to talk about your product, I'm really not going to. So again, I want to try to keep this neutral to anything that could help you guys. So again, I hope that that's helpful, at least to get you to think of what type of undertaking. Again, WFM and analytics, kind of super intense to get implemented. Gamification is kind of intense, but I think you'll get some more buy-in. QA is pretty darn easy. And, the production aspect you should have down. Yeah. So Jeff asked a question, like, what are examples of gamification? So we have a platform where our agents have their own avatars, right? They can play games on the platform, based on QA scores, based on handle time, based on service level for their team, based on different KPIs that they can earn coins, right? They can purchase things like time off and vacation days, Expedia gear, sweatshirt, hoodies, those kind of things from setup in our store. Our store, though, is mostly what the reps want, which is, PTO and vacation days, and to kind of earn above and beyond what they get from their normal deal. The other cool thing is they can bet, right? So they can bet coins. So I can have an agent that says, hey, Jimmy, I bet you, Janie, 100 coins that my QA scores higher today, that maybe my handle time will be 30 seconds lower than yours. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's bad. Maybe it's probably a bad example. But yeah, different things to make the day fun. Games that are not just, things that we're throwing at them in Slack, but are actually integrated to the actual platform. So a ton of things that we can do from a gamification to make the job fun, and to incent, KPIs that we have and that the reps want to hit. So that's kind of, I don't know, that's definitely an episode. And I would maybe I'll try to bring somebody on for each of these too. So it's not just me rambling on, but, maybe some experts that actually sell it or something like that can kind of, talk through and give some higher level examples of it. So hopefully that helps you guys. I appreciate everybody kind of chiming in with questions. Tanner, I appreciate the shout out. Says just he appreciates the information. Articles and posts on call centers have been extremely helpful. It's kind of why we do this. So anytime that I can get a shout out like that, I appreciate it. So again, thank you guys very much, and look forward to kind of talking about this stuff a little bit more in depth. I hope that's helpful. And we'll talk next week.